Welcome back to the next day. This is the E Union reaction phase. So it's the Union gets to move any units that they want to. Again, coming from a place of winging it, not quite feeling a little bit like I'm in over my head, but just trying to go with it anyway. I figured a couple of things should happen. Maybe advancing on these rebel units here with these guys, sending this airborne unit up ahead. He's kind of now in between both possible battle sites, so he can offer assistance to either or, depending who he feels needs it more. Advancing on this revolt hex here to try to take that down. Sent a couple of squads to advance on this guy. There's another couple that are advancing on this rebel unit. Left him behind, not quite sure what to do with him. My thought was maybe to bring him up to this hex. During this phase, their movement is halved, so they can only move up to half of their movement allowance. So I decided to keep him there on that hex though. Similarly, these ones up here, just left them where they are. Up here we made some advancements towards these guys. Thoughts were similar with this. I was going to creep up to the edge, but I don't know if I will. I think I might save him there. So 80% of the Union units moved and advanced. So what happens now, there's the Union reaction phase to the combat basically, then the rebel exploitation phase, which is more movement from them, then there's the Union march phase, and then the rebel units react to that by moving again, and then is finally the unit combat phase. So we'll see how that works out. Union moves, rebels move, Unions move, rebels move, and then the Unions are in combat. So the rebels have a chance to kind of move themselves out of combat range, really. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't quite know how to work that yet, but we'll stick with it. Any special notes about movement for this phase? Just that it was halved. That's all really. Everything else is the same. Union units treat these barrier hexes as nothing, so it's just a simple 1, whereas everybody else, the rebels, have to treat it as a barrier and move 6 through that. But other than that, everything else is the same. Just an added note for that last bit of movement. I knew that there was something I was forgetting to mention. The Union player determines which of his units are supplied by tracing a supply line from the unit to any friendly supply source anywhere on the map as described in Part 9. So those rules also apply, that the units still have to be supplied, which isn't an issue since we're not moving very far anyway. But I'm going to review that side. The other part is they have a special ability which I didn't use. Mobile units may employ mass converters to teleport between friendly settlements, paying all of their movement points to do so during this phase. So there's that ability. So if I wanted to basically beam in some units to some degree to some place closer, I could do that. I want to try to keep it as simple as possible for this first complete run through of a turn, so I won't utilize those. I'll review the supply line rules again just to make sure that I have done it correctly, and when I come back we'll touch on that briefly and move on to the rebel exploitation phase. Alright, here's what happened. So there was nothing I missed as far as the supply went for the Union players. They just have to be able to trace a direct line back to any settlement that they control, which they can because all of them moved a very short distance off of the settlements that they were already on from areas that were Union controlled. So all that was good. The next phase was the rebel exploitation phase, which was, again, movement. I decided a couple of things. One of them was this: instead of changing these or having these two forces here separate, decided to combine them, so to speak. The only question was which one would move to where. The terrain in here, the brown hexes there, are 3 movement points, and the dark brown ones are 4 movement points is what they cost. So I figured, let's move our units into this area that's just going to cost the Union players more to get into, especially when they have units that have a movement point value of 8. It's going to be much more difficult to get everybody close. And that was the thought here. Now I know that I left this warren exposed, and who knows, I haven't decided yet what I'll do when the Union players come. If they can make it in there, we'll see. Maybe I try to combine all of the forces to attack these guys, but another move might be to just attack that warren and destroy that warren. What else did I do? So I did that for there. Moved some units closer to help these guys. These are now stacked. This guy only had... They came from back here, from that warren to this warren. Again, with the idea of advancing. There's no worry of anybody coming in from that side, so here we are there. And that's it, and then we'll see what happens next. Hiya. Bye-bye. Here we are at the Union march phase, the last Union movement phase before they get into combat, which is 2 turns from now, basically. So it's Union march phase, rebel reaction phase, and then the combat phase. Quick tune in to find out. Let's see. So Union player determines which of his units are supplied by tracing a supply line, the usual stuff. The Union player moves any or all of his supplied units up to their full movement rating, paying terrain and zone of control entry costs as described in Part 6. Unsupplied units may expend only half their movement rating. So it doesn't isolate those units. They can still move. It's just only half. And again, the units may teleport between friendly settlements and strike divisions during this phase, paying all or part of their MPs to do so. I don't quite understand that, paying all or part. I would assume that you pay it all and that's all you do. Anyway, again, I won't be doing that. I don't want to abandon. I don't want the Union to abandon all its sites. I just feel like even doing the minimal stuff I have done has left quite a few spots open, a couple of warrens open, a couple of domes open, that sort of thing. And I hesitate to just abandon every single hex, and it actually looks like I've abandoned most of them, to be honest. So this side I'm not as concerned about. Fully intend to just keep going as I was and moving right in with these units. So there's not much there. This guy, I'm going to look at the numbers before I move, but this guy actually might end up just going to pile up to stack up with these units there. I'm going to read about stacking as far as air goes, but I don't think, as long as there's land to land on, I don't think there's any stacking limits. Nothing really will happen with this. I'm going to check out this guy. Maybe, I don't know. Again, I'll look at some numbers and have a look. My only one that I'm questioning is this one here. And this will actually allow me to bring up a point that I didn't earlier. A couple of things that my meager tweezers here. A couple of ideas that I did have. Just piling up around this warren and fighting this, which I think I might end up abandoning because on the hex here, the first number there is its defense rating, which is 18. And then the second number is its political rating. As it stands right now, they're all 4s, so I only have 16, which is going to give us a 1-to-1. Or does it give us a 1-to-2? No, there's no 1-to-2, so it's 1-to-1. And on our table down here, the only way that I can have any sort of effect is by hitting a 5, 6, or a 7 or more. 6 and a 7 preferably, because then that would destroy the Warren. The only benefit of that was, you know, keep destroying the hexes that are warrens or domes or whatever, so it affects their line of supply. But I'm thinking another thing that I can do is move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 with these ones, and then these 2 units can make it to there and just pile up there. So here's how that count went. If you're faced with a hex that has 2 types of terrain, like this one has forest, and then it also has what's called broken. This is called rough terrain, the mountains, and this is called broken terrain, just this light brown. You always count the hex as the one that's furthest down the list, basically. So forest is up here and it costs 2/3. Broken is down a little further and it's 3/4. So that's how that works out. And I think that's what I'll end up doing. I can bring these units in as well and kind of surround as much as I can. There's some units here that are just 8. Yeah, they're both 8 movement points. This air unit, even if he can't get all the way in, 3, 6, yeah, he can only get to there. His range is 4, so he can still offer some help. I might end up doing that, I think, surrounding these guys and see what happens. So, and then this is where, well, maybe I'll do the movements and I'll come back and we'll talk about that. Here's what that looks like after the movement. I was able to bring these guys close, and again, a range of 4, so that helps. These guys have a range of 2. I have to read again what the box around them stands for, signifies. And this is a range of 4. I can't quite remember what that means. I'll check that before we get into battle. I think though that when you're this close, you just count the hexes, you don't count the terrain. So 4 would just be 1, 2, as opposed to 3 here and that such nonsense. The other thing that I forgot to mention again is that zone of control. So when you're entering the hex, it's another 2, which made it good for these guys. I ended up bringing in this mutant horde or whatever they're called there as well. I have to recalculate this now that I'm thinking about it, because I'm not sure if that did it. It might end up being here, which would then limit my battle to just this guy, but I'll recalculate that and check it out. What did I do elsewhere on the board? Nothing happened there. This guy stayed, this guy stayed. These advanced. I decided to bring that air unit in to help these guys after looking at the numbers, because we're dealing with a 12, not a 12, that's an attack. A 4 and a 2 is a 6, and then same with these guys. So I wanted to just really stack it in my favor. Or is that a 2 and a 2? 2 and a 2 is 4. And again, close enough hopefully for the range. I would assume, again, I'll read about it, but my assumption would be that when the Union player's turn comes, I would limit their options as far as who they could attack. Maybe stack these here or vice versa. Either way, stack all of them on one hex to really make sure that the defense is strong. Up here, what happened? Nothing happened up here. Same thing, I may have messed this one up because they can still bring another unit in and probably stack as well. But again, I'll be reading up on all that to see exactly what those rules are. Up here, what did I do? moved this air unit a little closer so he's within range to help. Everybody else moved as close as they could, keeping in mind again that that zone of control around here costs you 2 extra movement points. That's as close as they could get. Now here's where, so that was the Union march phase. Now we get into the rebel reaction phase. And here's a part where I don't quite understand what could happen. My initial thought is that, like I was saying over here, obviously that kind of thing can happen. I decide, you know what, I'm going to stay in this battle, but I'm going to stack and really stack my deck so they don't stand a chance and they're going to lose as much as I am, if not more, just kind of make the odds in my favor. Where something like this, where we've now drawn in units that were all over here, I don't see why you couldn't just run away now. So all the Union units are now surrounding us. We could just hightail it out of here to escape their range and use our, I think for this next phase we can only use half. So 3, 4, so 3, oh no, then there's that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, no, because then that's that. Well, I think I might be working it out myself. So again, keeping in mind the zone of control hexes, moving into this hex to try to escape brings us into both of their zones of control. So this terrain is already costing us 3, so we couldn't get any farther. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so we could only get there, so we'd still be in combat. We can't move through hexes of the enemy. We can't move through the enemy's hexes. We have to go around them, and again, that zone of control. So maybe that answers my own question. There's really nowhere for us to run. This guy, I guess, could 2, 4, 6. He could go there, and that gets him out of range of this one. But by the looks of things, this is the one that's going to be attacked. So maybe that answers that question. There's really no solution that you can really escape. It's just now a matter of, as I was stating before, we're locked in this battle. Maybe this is more of a situation where they could run away. Kind of run away back here, regroup to attack again the next round. I don't really know, because 2, 4, 6, he's going to make it to there with his range of 2, so he'll be able to help. No, because it's not an attack, it's a defense. Anyway, clearly there's some more thought that needs to be put in on my part. And again, I guess that's the point of it sometimes, is to put yourself into these situations and see what your best strategy is. So either way, there's the layout of the board. Hopefully that's somewhat in focus. And when we come back, we'll see. I'll come back when we're ready for battle, basically. Okay.